This is EWA Radio, the official podcast of the Education Writers Association, and I'm public editor Emily Richmond. Veteran beat reporters like to say they've seen it all, but I'd argue none of us have seen anything quite like what's unfolding in South Florida. A principal apparently had hundreds of unknowing students sit for a faked advanced placement exam after the real ones were deemed too expensive for the school's budget. Cassidy Alexander, a first-year education reporter for the Daytona Beach News Journal, broke this story, and I thought we'd catch up with her on the latest and also chat about marking her first anniversary on the beat. Let's ring her up and see if she's available.
News Journal, this is Cassidy.
Cassidy, it's Emily Richmond with EWA Radio. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Good. You got a couple minutes to chat for the podcast?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, fantastic. So I got to tell you, congratulations on stunning a lot of education reporters with this story.
Thank you. Thank you. I was stunned as well.
Let's set this up for folks who may not have caught your reporting. There were 18 classes of ninth graders enrolled in an AP course designed to test their college readiness. So where did the trouble start?
Well, the trouble started at the very beginning of the year. The principal at this school wanted to offer this course so that freshman students could, learn basic skills. They could learn how to research, how to write. But pretty early in the year, they realized that they wouldn't be able to afford the $60,000 price tag to give the exam to all 414 of the freshmen who were enrolled in the class. And that's because they asked the school district, and an official said that they couldn't pay for it, which later I found out is very unusual for, Volusia County, but also any Florida district. Usually if a kid's in an AP class in Florida, they get to take the test.
But only 3 of those classes actually got to take the AP exam. What happened to the rest of them?
The rest of those students were given what school officials have called a placebo exam. And from what I can understand, that was just a previous year's version of the test. They were not notified that it wouldn't be the official AP exam. It wouldn't result in college credit, wouldn't result in an official score on the College Board's website. And they didn't know about it until, from what I can tell, they read about it in the Daytona Beach News Journal. The principal wanted to make it look like it was the real thing so that those students would do their best, and she could gather data about their performance after the first year of offering this course at the school. And on top of that, I'll add that she maintained throughout the district's investigation that she did not realize that this course on its own would be an opportunity for students to get college credit.
How far did this go in terms of this deception? They made a mock test, so a student sitting next to another one might not be able to tell.
Yeah, they wanted it to look as much like the real thing as possible. So the students who were taking the real exam, they were given those barcodes with like a personal identification number on it that you have to put on all of your tests. And they were kind of separated from the other students. So there was like a lot of back and forth between the teachers and the officials at the school about how to make it look like that and how to not raise suspicions of the students when some of them were being treated a little bit differently than others. I've heard since that some of those students they noticed when that happened and they thought it was weird but didn't know what to make of it.
This is just a great example of where doing the wrong thing is so much more work and so much more effort than just doing what was supposed to happen in the first place.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. After the story came out and after talking to some parents about it and some students, it seems to be that they would not have really minded that not all of them got to take the exam. They just mind that they weren't told that they weren't getting the real thing.
It makes me a little bit heartsick for those students because they worked in this class all year trying to earn college credit and, studied for that test. And then to find out that they were part of this ham-handed attempt at an experiment, that's just a huge disappointment.
Yeah, I think if I was one of those students, I would be disappointed as well. And the feedback that I've been receiving so far is that they are, they feel bad about being deceived. That's the word that I've heard parents use a couple of times. They're frustrated and they feel deceived by the school's actions by not being notified at any point during the school year or after.
What really struck me about this story is it sort of emphasizes, well, first of all, how difficult it is to do legitimate experiments in public schools. And one of the reasons for that is we're not supposed to use kids as guinea pigs like this. If it was going to be a real gold standard test, then not even the principal would have known which students were going to be taking the real test and which were taking what she called the placebo. But that's not what happened. She let teachers sort of handpick which sections were going to actually take the test.
Yeah, if you ask the teachers, I doubt they would say they handpicked, but they chose different class periods, pretty much whole class sets of students over others. And that was something that stuck out to me as well when I was reading the investigative summary from the school district. And it's a question that I still think needs a better answer than I have right now.
How much did the teachers know, Cassidy, and when did they know it?
Well, according to the investigative summary, the teachers started raising questions about this all the way back the summer before the school year started. They went to a training down in South Florida about how to offer this course, and they pretty quickly realized that this is normally not a course that's offered for freshmen. It's usually a course that's actually offered for higher performing students in their maybe 11th or 12th grade years. So they started raising questions pretty much right away. And according to the report earlier, once they went to the principal and raised some of those concerns, they got, I guess you could say, brushed off. I mean, they said, oh, we'll deal with that later. It's an issue for administration, not for you to worry about. And they started asking questions about how they were going to pay for the test at that point too, but they didn't really get a good answer.
Is there a concern that what's happened with this placebo or fake test has undone any possible good from this program? Because it's my understanding that some of the students actually had some positive outcomes from being in this class.
I think it definitely did damage to the relationship that the students have with their teachers. One thing that I think the district has made pretty clear is that they are planning to offer some way for the students who want to take this exam next year. But I think there might be a sentiment of too little, too late, for these students. I mean, I think that parents and these students would have just preferred to know in the beginning of the year, in the middle of the year, even before they took the test, what, they were actually going to be going through instead of finding out after the fact.
How did this story come across your desk?
A source actually tipped me off to it sometime in May. And I at the time, I was like, that seems ridiculous. I mean, I can't imagine that to be true. And so I reached out to the Florida Department of Education and asked if there had been any complaints made about this school. And I got back the initial complaint, which, as it turns out, wasn't too far off the mark. I mean, it said that freshmen were enrolled in an AP course and not all of them were given the test, and that some students were given a fake test. And it made the allegation that it's because the school wanted to pad its GPAs, because in Volusia, like in at least most other Florida districts, I believe, students in advanced courses get extra weight on their GPA. So once I had that, my editor and I had a conversation about if we should write about it at that point. And I was like, yeah, we definitely need to do a story. And so I wrote it, and it was this kind of pitiful little story, maybe 6 paragraphs about what the complaint said. And we both looked at it and we were like, no, we should definitely wait until more comes to light on this, until the district does the investigation, because the state had given them 30 days. And this was somewhere in the middle of that. So I was just kind of waiting for 2 or 3 weeks after that.
Was it hard to wait?
Not for me, because it has been a tumultuous month or so in Volusia County schools. They ousted their superintendent, and there have been a few other big kind of issues that have been occupying my time.
But do you think there is a lesson here in the value of not just getting it first, but getting it right?
Definitely, yeah. I don't know that it wouldn't have been of value to people if it had come out at that point. I think it would have just been a concern. I think there would have been way more questions than I had an answer to that we would have all just had to wait for. So it's better for just me to wait than for, I think, the whole community.
You knew to ask for this report from a tip. Was it difficult to actually get your hands on the report once you knew it was out there?
So when I got the complaint, it included a timeline for the district that they had to get back to the state at a certain time. So I knew, when I should come back and request it. So I requested the results of the investigation from the district, and I requested it from the State Department of Education at the same time. And within a couple of days, the State Department of Education got right back to me and gave me the investigative summary that they had received from the district. And I'm still to this day waiting to hear back from the district about that request. And then after that, I heard that once the story published on a Tuesday morning, other media outlets in the area were having trouble getting the report from the state. For whatever reason, they were like, oh no, we can't possibly release that. By the end of the day, they were able to get it. I heard that some lawyers got involved. But yeah, so I guess I was just lucky. Maybe someone wasn't paying attention to what was in it. I'm not sure exactly what went on there.
What did you learn about public records in doing this story?
I learned that I should be a little more proactive probably about requesting things like complaints. I mean, the way that I got this complaint to begin with is I just reached out to the state and said, hey, has anyone complained about this school in the past year or two? I believe I said, and they were able to answer right back, yeah, of course, and this is what it said. So there's nothing really stopping me from doing that more frequently if I ever hear anything about a school, or if I just, have it in my head to look it up. Obviously, I don't want to be a nuisance to relations specialists in the State Department, but it's a luxury I should take more advantage of.
Well, there's one suggestion I would make to reporters is that most states have something they call a test security report, in which they have to report back to the State Department of Education any violations that were found in any districts and any kind of mandatory standardized testing. And usually those things are full of things like a fire drill went off in the middle of the testing, kids weren't able to finish the exam. But sometimes you find some interesting nuggets buried in those kinds of things, and it's worth putting on your ticker file to ask for that annual report.
I will be doing that when we get off of here.
We're talking with Cassidy Alexander of the Daytona Beach News Journal about her reporting on a surprising scandal in a local high school around AP testing. Don't miss an episode of EWA Radio. You never have to. You can find us on your favorite podcast app. And don't forget to take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Your support and feedback will help us grow. So, Cassidy, the College Board oversees the advanced placement program. What's been their response to the scandal?
I reached out to the College Board when I was doing one of my follow-up stories, and I have yet to hear back. So if anyone's listening from the College Board and would like to talk to me about this, you can find my number online. But I didn't hear back from them personally, but someone talked to them for the investigative summary from the school district. And they pretty much said that this is a district and a school level issue. Once the school is kind of signed up to take the course, to offer the course, they don't necessarily care how few or how many students take the test. So they didn't really have an issue with only 78 students taking the official test. They think it's a communication issue with the district and families and schools.
Have you found any other examples nationwide of a principal or teachers, I hate to use this verb, but tricking students like this?
I haven't, and it's been, I think, kind of a shock to most educators who have been reading about it as well. I know it's especially uncommon for Florida because, as we talked about, students don't have to pay for their own AP test. So it's pretty much worked into, I think, school districts that they're going to be the ones who are paying for and offering these tests. So I think it's very uncommon. And it's especially uncommon in Volusia because I spoke to a district official who oversees testing for students in these advanced courses, who said that it's an expectation that if a student signs up for an AP course in Volusia County, that they are going to sit for the exam and they're going to be offered that opportunity, which, as we know, is not what happened here.
Did you pick up any new skills or find any good questions that got unexpected answers reporting out this story?
That's a good question. I've definitely learned that I guess that things like this can happen. This seems so crazy and it seems so out there, but it's something that happens. It can happen in your home pretty much. And it's been a good opportunity for me to learn about offering advanced courses to high school students, and but also just to learn about the relationship that families have with their school. I talked to one parent after this happened. I was like, so does this affect the way that you view the school? And she said that she thinks that her daughter's still going to get a really good education there, but she just can't believe she wasn't, told about this, that she wasn't brought in the loop. And for me, a lot of the questions that are still out there are about the leadership in the district and in the school and what was going on at the upper levels that would allow something like this to happen.
It is, as you say, very much a story about trust and relationships, as much as it's about anything about aspirations for students or the role that advanced testing might play in that. And I do think that you laid it out really well in your story, the way you structured it, in that you seem to be anticipating what questions people might have about what this might mean for the students or where the district goes next.
Yeah, I've had a lot of practice with that. Volusia County has some very active Facebook groups that are oriented around education. So pretty much every story I write ends up on those forums and people get to ask questions. So after about a year, I like to think I'm pretty adept at guessing what questions they're going to ask and trying to answer them in advance.
How important is social media for you as a reporting tool?
For me, it's very important. Volusia County is a really massive school district in ways that can make it easier to reach out to parents and to find people to talk to. But I think it can also make it a little harder to know where to start. And so to have so much of the conversation about education taking place already on social media, it's a real privilege for me to be able to go there and kind of see what people are talking about. Although I make a point not to rely on it too heavily when I can, because I know that's only a fraction of the people who are actually in the school system.
What do you do to try to verify people who may contact you on social media? What other steps do you take to try to maybe track down or verify their perspective or their identity?
I spend a lot of time just trying to talk to more people than one or two and just seeing, how the story checks out and how what they're feeling echoes and resonates with other people. And yeah, just kind of checking with teachers and with district officials and seeing, so this is what I'm hearing. Is this what you're hearing? Are we on the same page? Am I totally off base? Or I spent a lot of time just telling people what is in my head and what is in my notes and seeing, does that seem right?
Cassidy, you grew up in South Florida, went to college locally, and now work at the local newspaper. What are some of the values for a reporter in being so steeped in the community?
Well, I think it kind of makes the people in my community a little more predisposed to trust me. When I started, I'd introduce myself to people and they'd be like, "Oh, you went to that high school?" And, I never thought so many people would ask me about where I went to high school and elementary school. But I think it's been good for developing relationships. And it's also been good, in particular for this story about the AP testing. I took AP courses in Volusia County schools not all that long ago. So it kind of gave me a foundation to ask questions, or maybe gave me a little bit of a leg up, and also gave me more of an insight into what the students may be thinking, because it really wasn't that long ago that I was one of those students.
What's been helpful to you in the past year in improving your journalism skills and knowledge, and that might help other reporters who are starting out just like you are?
I think the most beneficial thing for me has just been reading the work of other education reporters in other communities. There are a few people who cover education at my paper, but I'm the one who does it full time for Volusia County. But everyone, around the state, around the country really, are covering the same topics. So it's been good to see what other people have been doing and then trying to emulate or follow the same lines in my reporting for my community, as well as just educating myself. I've been trying to be more involved with the Education Writers Association, of course. I went to the national seminar, and that was totally invaluable for me just to learn from my peers. So I think that's been the best thing for me.
What do you know now that you didn't know last year, Cassidy?
I know now that I should be more confident in my own reporting and what I understand and what I know, and just kind of trust myself a little more than I maybe would have last June. If this story came across my desk last June, it would have probably terrified me, but I felt very equipped to handle it this year.
Cassidy Alexander covers the local schools for the Daytona Beach News Journal, and she joined us from her office. Cassidy, thanks for making time for EWA Radio.
Thank you.
And that wraps up another episode for us. If there's a story you want to know more about, remember, drop us a line with radio@ewa.org. The mission of the Education Writers Association is to strengthen the community of education journalists and improve the quality of education coverage. For more than 70 years, EWA has helped reporters get the story right. Have a great week, and thank you for listening.